Hello, I am Bernadette and I want to show you how I make TARDIS cufflinks out of polymer clay. These are really cute, geeky Whovian cufflinks and they're really cute for a geeky wedding. Or just a fancy dude. Alright, I start off with about a 1-inch ball of polymer clay, whatever brand you like. I prefer Fimo, and as close as you can get to TARDIS blue. I cut off about 1/4 of it and I smash it flat. I smash it about 1/2 centimeter thick. This is a Cufflink blank. This is what I'm going to glue onto the back to turn it into a cufflink. So I keep that around for size. Alright, and I smash it, and my clay has already been kneaded. It's already ready to go. Once it's the right thickness, I smash it down and I smooth it out. And then I cut it into the TARDIS chunk shape. And I cut it like this. I'll show you what I'm saying here. I'll cut it like a mirror image of itself so that I make sure I get them both the exact same size and shape. But I flip one over so that it's just an easier way to do that. So I keep that guy out for size and they look about right. So I smooth them out. Get them nice and pretty. And then I take my remaining piece of clay and I flatten that out to a little bit thinner. And this is I take my long blade again and I cut it into 4 strips. These are going to be the wood trim that goes around the corner edge. Those 2 edges of the TARDIS chunk. So be careful with your pieces. You want to keep them straight and rounded on the ends. You don't want them to get too flat or smushy. You want to keep crisp lines as best you can. So go ahead and press those down. And you don't want to press too firm or you will smash your bits. You want to keep them nice and straight. You don't have to be really rough with it. It'll stick if you just press it gently. And keep it lined up. You shouldn't rely on your next step to fix your previous error. I tell myself that the whole time I'm working. Always be clean, always be as precise as you can so you have less to fix later. It doesn't always work that way, but that's what I try to do. So here we go. We trimmed off the excess. Make it all look as neat and sharp as we can. Cleaning it up in case there's any overhang. You want crisp edges on that side. And I use that as my size guide, and now I'm going to shape it to look like it exploded. So I'm going to cut this edge really rough. I'm just going to kind of hack at it so that it looks like a broken piece. And if you look at the piece from the show, it's kind of a triangle shape, a really long, skinny at the one end triangle. And I don't want that for these guys because I think that would make a rotten cufflink. I like a little round kind of a guy. So you can do whatever you want. Do whatever you feel is going to be the best. But for me, this is what I like to do. I like to keep them kind of square. So that one's done. Time to do the next one. And again, I try and keep everything crisp. So I straighten it up with my long blade. And if you don't have one of those and you're working with polymer clay, definitely get one. They are the best. I use mine every time I work. The Sculpey brand one is a little pricier than just an off-brand one, so just look around in the polymer clay aisle and see what you can find. Mine's a cheapy one and I love it. It works fine. There's a sharp, razor sharp edge which I use to cut the clay, and then there's a non-sharpened edge that I use to press lines and to level things out. But be careful because it is a razor and it will cut you. I've cut myself with mine and it hurt pretty good. So don't do that to yourself. Alright, now we've got 2 exploded looking TARDIS looking chunks. So now take that flat end like I was talking about earlier and press kind of a wood grain texture into the wood trim. This is my favorite part of anything that I make. I love doing this because it looks so neat and it's so easy. You just press it gently in there and suddenly you have what looks like wood texture. It's a really cool trick. So now they're ready to bake. So bake them off according to your clay's packaging. Every brand is different. Alright, and use some acrylic paint. I use Americana and Martha Stewart brands pretty much exclusively because they work the best for me, but use whatever you've got, whatever you like. And I did this the next few steps out of order, but it doesn't really matter what order you do them in. So normally I don't paint before I sand, but I don't know why I did this way. So give it a coat of white, that'll be the base coat. And see how suddenly my film quality is a lot better? I realized that I can film with my DSLR, and now this video is going to be a lot prettier. And I clean up with my X-Acto knife. Be careful if you do this. You use a lot of razors when you're working with glaze, and you can cut yourself, and you will cut yourself, so just be really careful. I look like I'm not being careful, but I am. Okay, and this is 600 grit wet dry sandpaper. I use this to finish pieces. You can use a thicker grit if you need to take off a big, a lot of material. But since we kept these so clean as we were working on them, you really just need that to finish up the edges and make it extra sharp. And then out of order again, I started to distress it, and then I realized, hey, wait a minute, there's no lettering on this thing, it's just a chunk. So then I stopped what I was doing and I painted police and FR because that's what tends to fit on this one. I use a really small brush, really, really, really small. The tiniest. I can't even find these in stores. I have to order them online now. But I can't live without my tiny, tiny brushes. It's a, however you say this brand, Loew-Cornel. I'll write it in the little notes down there, but it's an 18/0 liner. And that's one of the brushes that I use to do lettering on miniature pieces. It's a really good brush. It's a nice, sharp, very thin line. And that was before I went back in later and did the little serifs on the letters. You can do it either way, whatever you feel up to. But to me it looked a little better once I went in there later and did those. So now I'm taking some black paint and some gray paint and a little bit of water and just distressing it and making it look like it was charred in a fiery explosion. Like the real piece. This part's really fun, but you gotta have a light hand on this or you will ruin it. Don't ruin it. It's a lot of hard work. Don't ruin your piece with too much black and too much gray. I've done that before and it's sad. And then once you're done and it looks good to you, go around the edges with a little bit of black paint so that it looks even more burnt. Because the piece from the film, the blue is almost black. The white is very clear. You can read police really clearly, but the blue part there's a lot of black on there, so knock yourself out. But keep the blue because it's gotta have some TARDIS blue. It's the TARDIS, come on. And I thought about making this end here brown like wood, but I looked back at the piece on the show and it's pretty much black, so don't worry about it. And there you go. Not bad. A little stylized, but an homage to the piece from the show. Now you're going to need your Cufflink Blanks. You can find these online. And some epoxy. I have the 5-minute Gorilla epoxy. They only make a 5-minute, but I really like it. It's my favorite. And then a piece of paper or something thick and some toothpicks or something to mix your epoxy with, something that you can throw away. I use a piece of brown paper bag. And epoxy is dreadful, so be really careful when you're using your epoxy. And don't take your time either. You gotta act quickly. The stuff sets up fast. And keep some baby wipes or something like that handy, because if you get it on your skin, it's really gross and you're gonna have to want to wipe it off really quickly. And I propped up the edge without the trim on a toothpick, because when epoxy dries, things will slide around while it's still wet, while it's setting up. So you're gonna want to level out your piece. Otherwise your Cufflink blank will just slide right off and you won't know till the morning. So now I go back in with a little bit of epoxy on a toothpick and I paint a little bit of it around the flat part of the blank, because if you just have a little bit of glue underneath your blank, it'll just pop right off. You need that glue to come up around the edges and encase the back onto the piece of polymer clay, because the epoxy won't bond with the metal so much, but it really will stick to the clay. So you need the metal part to be trapped inside the glue. So you're going to use a good deal of glue. Alright, now these have cured overnight, so they're completely set up, and that Cufflink blank is not going anywhere. These guys are mated for life. So under normal use, you should not have any trouble with them popping off, as long as you glued them up, like I said, and got that guy really trapped in there. So the next step will be to glaze. after that, you're completely done. I use Rustoleum Varathane gloss. That's my favorite. That's absolutely my favorite. And I did another video. My only other video so far is on that. So if you want a little bit more information about glazing, go ahead and give that a watch. Some tips and tricks. But basically, we're just painting on a couple really thin coats of whatever glaze you prefer and letting it dry thoroughly between coats. And then once you're done with that, these guys are ready to wear. And keep them dry, don't get them wet, and treat them gently because polymer clay can break, but under normal use you'll have a nice little pair of TARDIS cufflinks. So thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it. Like and subscribe for future videos, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Thanks so much, bye.